Hey everybody, welcome to the Private Club Radio Show, where we give you the scoop on all things private golf and country clubs, from mastering leadership and management, food and beverage excellence, member engagement secrets, board governance, and everything in between, all while keeping it fun and light. Whether you're a club veteran just getting your feet wet or somewhere in the middle, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Denny Corby. Welcome to the show. In this episode, I am bringing back on a friend of ours here on the channel, Sarah Mueller. And she's an author and emotional intelligence coach. And she works with many clubs, club personnel, leaders, managers, both in-person trainings. There's leadership coaching, has a great book. And at the end, if you listen, she gives a way for you to get the audio version of her book for free. But I wanted to bring her on, and we're chatting in this episode about strategies for year-end reflection and goal setting for 2025. And some highlights and things that you can take away from the episode are year-end reflections. Sarah's going to share a structured approach on how to reflect on the past year, identifying both achievements and challenges, and with this practice, help encourage us for more self-awareness and learning from experiences to kind of help shape our future. We're going to touch on emotional intelligence for professional growth, and particularly self-awareness and self-compassion. We're going to talk about the 3 core questions for a solid year-end review. We're going to talk about goal setting and going beyond just resolutions, as well as some really good, strong nuggets on how to be an impactful leader. And make sure you listen to the end. She will share how to get the free audiobook version of her book, The Balanced Life Blueprint, which provides actionable strategies to apply these insights in your daily life. Before we get to the episode, if you have not signed up for our newsletter, make sure you sign up. Head over to privateclubradio.com. It pops right up there for you after a couple seconds. Big thanks to some of our show partners, Kenneth Member Vetting, Golf Life Navigators, and Concert Golf Partners, as well as myself, Denny Corby, the Denny Corby Experience. There's excitement, there's mystery, also there's magic, mind reading, and comedy. One of the most fun member vet nights you will have guaranteed. If you want to learn more, head over to dennycorby.com. But right now, Private Club Radio listeners, let's welcome back to the show our friend, Sarah Mueller. But I'm excited to be here chatting with you, Sarah Mueller, author, speaker, coach. What other amazing word can I use to describe you? But
amazing mama, awesome friend, all kinds of words.
Yes. And I'm thrilled to be on here chatting with you. You're a fan of the channel, friend of the channel. We have a great episode on here before, and I want to bring you on because we're, slowly the year is coming to an end. It's going to be wrapping up soon, and
can you believe it?
I know. I want to talk about how to properly reflect on the year, maybe how to celebrate accomplishes, how to look back and reflect on a year properly, and then how to move forward and how to set up success for the next year. And when I was thinking about this, I was like, who am I going to bring on to talk about this? And I was like, oh, has to be Sarah. And you sent me some stuff, so we have some questions to be had as well. So we're going to do a little working together. And if you're listening, you can work together as well.
Yes.
But I'm going to pass it over to you, Sarah.
Okay, cool. And I do want to really encourage your listeners to do this work, to do some of the inquiry that we're going to go over together, because that is what causes change in our lives. We can keep going year after year. We can keep running on that hamster wheel of life. And if we don't make any shifts, if we don't pause to reflect and say, well, how are things going? Am I actually happy? Am I enjoying the direction that my life is going in? Nothing's going to change. We're going to keep getting year after year what we've already gotten. And so it is really important for us to pause and look at our personal life and our professional lives and our career and think about what it is that we want. And so I already know that you have sort of the top 5% of people listening to your podcast, right? They're in this industry that is very demanding and requires excellence. They're listening to a podcast that's helping them to grow. And then if we can actually put some of what we're talking about today into practice, that is the top percentage where we start to get some shifts and some change. So I'm really going to encourage your listeners to dive into what we talk about today and actually do the work versus just hear about it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, do you want me to sort of walk through how I would structure this? I lead a best year ever kind of workshop, and I bring some of this inquiry forward. Should I just kind of dive in and we'll
Jump right in,
do
babe.
it together and see how that sounds?
Jump
Okay.
right in. I love this.
Awesome. Okay. So, when we are planning for a new year, and it's, I'm not a huge fan of New Year's resolutions and setting those goals for the New Year's, because we know that within a few weeks of the New Year coming, that most of us have already abandoned our New Year's resolutions. However, the New Year is a really easy time for us to check in, right? It's one of those hard time periods that says, okay, this is a time for change. And before we start creating what it is that we think we want, we need to gather data. And you know that emotional intelligence is my specialty and what I focus on. And that first pillar of emotional intelligence is called self-awareness. And so really we need to understand ourselves. We need to look at our values, our strengths, our weaknesses, our patterns, our triggers, and decide what's working for us and what's not. And so in order to do that, one of the exercises that I like to give my clients is really an exercise where we're looking back on the last year and we're making a list. So what you would do is you would just get a piece of paper and create a column, just draw a line down the center of the paper. And then on the left-hand side of the column is a chance to look back over your year and highlight some of those best moments that you had, highlight some of your favorite things that you did, highlight what you loved, and also highlight some of the hard parts, some of the stressful parts, some of the challenges that you went through. And also to look for things that you are most proud of over the last year. And so one of the easiest ways that I have found to do this is to really go back through my phone. And I did this actually in preparation for our conversation today. And just to look through, because, first of all, being an emotional intelligence expert, we know that we want to lean into emotion for the teams that we lead and for ourselves, because it's emotion that really drives people. And so when we're looking at photos of our life, it's really creating an emotional experience. We're remembering those ups and those downs, and it's bringing us back to that space. And so I recommend, if you're listening, to pause this video and go back and look at your phone. But Denny, I'm curious, for you, what are some of the things that come up when you're making this column? And I know I'm just putting you right on the spot and you haven't had a chance to go through and look at all those pictures on your phone, but I'm curious what's coming up for you.
Oh man, I don't like this one bit. Man, my face just got red. Oh, I can feel the pressure.
Well, I'm happy to be the guinea pig too, but I'd love if you're willing to share.
No, I think, this is tough. I think sticking with, there's a few things. One, sticking with private club radio, to do anything over and over and over again and to continuously put out content, as you can attest to, is very, very difficult. So, the fact that very proud that I continuously put out episodes and content and push for that, because sometimes it's not easy to do all that. Oddly happy, very accomplished for the segment I had on the Huckabee show. Zero anything about politics, but it was a really cool trick and just a cool collab thing. And it was just a really fun experience. So that was just fun. And then connecting with a friend of mine who I know through another thing down there who came to see it was really cool. Just, there was a lot of good travel. I'm going through photos now. This is funny. I got to travel to one of my favorite places, which is Louisiana. It's where I got some of my career start in clubs. So anytime I can go back and just be down there and be with some of those people, new and old, I get to see my buddy Lee Stahl. That just brings back good feel. It's good. It's it's borderline therapeutic, energizing, and also a way to look back on how far we've come on life, the whole world. It's the butterfly effect. No,
yes.
Yeah, I keep going, but I think that was a good start.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And so essentially when we're doing this exercise, what we want to do, we have this first column with what we're proud of, our highlights, the best parts, and the challenges. And then the second column is our opportunity to gain the wisdom from this. So rather than just diving into the new year and going forward, we really want to pause and learn and get as much gold as we can from our experiences this past year. So, for example, you mentioned that you are really proud of being able to consistently put out this great content for private club radio, even though it is difficult and it takes a big commitment. So, if you were to put a learning around that, what would that learning be for you?
Just send it. I think, you strive for like the best, and like, you nitpick on details, and, you do certain things. So I think just, I forget, I think it may have been Dan Martell or one of the other people that we were just talking about and consuming before I hit record, but it was like 80% is
Mm-hmm.
better than nothing. So it was just like, okay, hey, is it
Yes.
80? It's good. Like, it's good enough now. Okay, done. And it's, yeah. So I think that was a big thing, is just like, okay, it might not be perfect, but it's sometimes just putting out and just having and doing action and creating, just putting things out, sometimes at, instead of spending another hour or two, however long it is, just like, oh, what if this is a little bit, oh, you just nitpick over everything. Just, okay, is it 80%? It's pretty much there. Good. All right, let's roll. Um,
So, so what I'm hearing from you is this understanding that if striving for perfection is something that you and I both can relate to. I mentioned to you before that I'm a recovering
yeah.
perfectionist, and I think that a lot of people in the private club space relate to this as well, right? Excellence is the minimum standard that's required in all of the clubs. And so a lot of your listeners are probably can relate to this need for perfection. And what we are and what you just spoke about is the fact that it can hold us back, right? If we continue perfecting and perfecting and perfecting, we're not gonna ship the art. We're not going to publish the podcast. There's always something more to do. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you're moving towards excellence. You're doing and putting out the best content that you can, while understanding that your best is not perfection. Perfection doesn't exist, and perfection is holding you back. Would that be
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And so this is just an example. As we go down the line, we're gathering data. We're taking the wisdom from all of our experiences. I even was looking at my list, and I launched my book earlier this year, and beyond all that took to create for me, what I really learned from that experience is that there are so many people that love and support me. And I really got to see that in the launch of my book and having people review it and share it with their friends and family. And so that was a big learning that I'm taking with me now as I head into the new year. And even this past year, as I've gone through ups and downs and challenges and struggles, it's remembering that there's so many people that are there for me that has helped me to get through. And so this exercise is looking at, where's the wisdom from this? What can I learn from this? One thing that I wanted to ask you, one more thing on your list, you mentioned the travels that you had and going back to Louisiana, and that, looking at how far we've come. What does that tell you about how you'd want to create your 2025, your next year?
Probably doubling down more on relationships. Cause like that's where it started, and it's like, okay. And I think sometimes, you get busy doing other stuff, and it's like, no, sometimes you got to go back to basics almost. And it's like, what does it boils down to? It boils down to like relationships, fostering those relationships, harnessing those relationships. And,
Yeah, and that's great. And as we look at a lot of the data around happiness and having satisfaction in life, it really goes to those relationships that we have and then those experiences that we have. And so those are kind of two side notes that I always encourage people to think about when they are looking at their past year and they're beginning to plan for the new one is, have I devoted enough time? Have I invested enough time in my relationships, in creating experiences? One of the things that I learned from doing my 2-column list was that I didn't do a lot of travel this past year. I'm really a big traveler, but I had some other things going on this year. And so my travel wasn't as extensive. And that made me really want to start planning for some more trips and vacations and adventures in 2025. But I recognize that I don't need to get on an airplane in order to have great experiences. There were some photos that I found on my phone with my boys and with my friends of local things that we did that really, created lifelong memories in me. My youngest son was, he had a birthday party and he said he wanted to eat at the best steakhouse in the country. And we couldn't take him to that one, but we did go to the best steakhouse in Naples, and we had a 3-hour dinner, with an 8 and a 10-year-old. And so that was my learning, is that I don't need to make it so extravagant to have a great experience. I mean, a great steakhouse meal can be kind of extravagant, but there's different ways of looking at it. So that is really the column exercise. I think the important piece is to also look at where we struggled and where we had stress, because those are the things that we're quick to push under the rug, that we're quick to want to move over and gloss over. Those are the types of things that us as leaders, in the private club space, that we like to keep hidden. We don't want to put out our failures. We don't want to put out our mistakes. And really what I teach in my emotional intelligence workshops with the leadership teams that I work with is, when we're getting to become an inspirational leader, we're sort of leading from our heart. We're leading as a human, because people don't connect with the super successful person that only shows all of their successes and all of their wins. It's this leader that has been humbled because they've been through life and they've learned so much, and that's why they have so much wisdom. They're able to connect with their staff, connect with their employees, and say, hey, I've made mistakes before, or hey, this didn't work out, but what we learned was this. I made this mistake, and this is what I now do differently. And when we're having what I call the tough love conversations with the leadership teams that I work with and I train on, it's this entering into a conversation with some of our challenges, with some of our mistakes and failures, to kind of say, hey, I've done it too. That helps to lower someone else's defenses, so that you're able to have a person-to-person conversation that allows for change, allows the person to not be so defensive, and instead hear what you have to say, so that they can begin to shift their behavior to be more productive within the club. Does that make sense?
No, totally. I like that.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah, and so that's where really the wisdom of life comes from, is when we look at those challenges. And so, after we go through this column exercise, we're really just gathering data. We're starting to say, well, what happened this last year? What am I learning about myself? Because I need to understand myself in order to go forward with success. And then there's 3 questions that I always recommend asking. And I actually ask these to myself on a monthly basis, but definitely, at the end of the year, we want to look back and just say, number 1, how can I make my life more joyful and more fulfilling? And we don't often pause and ask that question. I mean, how often do you pause and say, how can I bring more joy to my life? My business is named Joy Discovered, and I have to put it in my calendar to remind myself to actually ask myself that question and go towards the joy. And I think this really comes back to what you and I spoke about on the first episode that I was with you, that so many of us are creating this life that we're living for other people. We're doing what society has told us will make us happy. We're doing what our parents want us to do that will make them happy and be proud of us. And so when we're looking at really, how can I bring more joy to my life? It's what really lights me up? What really makes me happy? Is this experience that I'm having at this club right now in line with my career goals? Do I need more of a challenge, or am I at this stage in my life where it's good for me to have some more balance? Or am I ready to learn more? Am I ready to grow? Can I still make an impact here? We're tapping into all these questions and figuring out what will be fulfilling and joyful for me. And this is, also a good time to think about, well, what do I not like doing that I'm spending my time on? What do I tolerate doing because it just has to get done? And this really goes to our conversation that you and I were having earlier around, assistance and delegating, and, what we can do with those things that just have to get done that we tolerate. Well, we can say, well, how can I bring some more joy to this? So, I've got to clean the kitchen afterwards, after making dinner, right? Unless I hire someone to do that, right? That would be an option if that was in my budget. But if I'm the one that's cleaning my kitchen, it's like, okay, how can I bring some more joy to this? I could listen to one of your podcasts. I could turn on some music. I could call a friend. So it's bringing that joy into those things that we just kind of have to do, that we tolerate. And then those things that we really hate doing, that's where we say, well, do I really need to do this? Am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for someone else's expectations of me? Or can I just delete this? Or can I delegate this if this isn't something that I specifically have to do? And so I think that's a good way for us to check in regularly, really at the end of the year, as we're starting to plan our new year going forward.
This is really good. It's like one of those, like, I know it's recorded, but I'm still like taking notes. Like, I can't go back. Um,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And then, the other question number two, if we're looking at these three essential questions, would be, what is stressing me out and why? And so we're humans. Our life is going to be stressful. Some stress is good. It's what pushes us to high performance. But when we're in these deep levels of ongoing stress, obviously that's not fun for anyone. That doesn't bring a lot of joy. And so it's good for us just to look back and say, well, what is causing me stress and what can I do about it? Is there something that I need to let go of? Is there something that I need to get support on? Is there something I need to learn? And really, is there a coach I can hire or a therapist I can work with? Is there a new mentor that I need to ask for support from? What is stressing me out? Do I need to hire someone to fill this role that has been kind of been open in my club that really needs a body in it right now, right? So anything that allows us to just look back and say, what is stressing me out and how can I begin to shift those things? And then the third question is really, what can I let go of? What can I let go of as I head into this new year? What can I let go of to allow joy and success in? Because we are often blocking our success. So, an example from what you and I were talking about earlier is I could let go of this need to be 100% perfect all the time. And instead, I could strive for excellence. Or I can let go of this need to do it all myself. And instead, I could hire an assistant to support me in different ways. So I want to just pause and see if you have any questions around those three questions that are great to ask ourselves towards the end of the year.
No, those are fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that, there is there's a level of compassion, of self-compassion that we want to bring to this exercise as well, especially when we're looking at the things that stress us out or the challenges that we've faced in the year. And it's not, we never want to go into something like this to beat ourselves up. We never want to go in and say, you should have done better, right? Of course we want to do better. Of course we want to learn. I know that anyone who's listening to this podcast right now is striving to be their best self, or else they wouldn't be listening. But it's going into some compassion, saying, I was doing the best I could with everything that I had at that moment. And instead of beating myself up, I'm going to take some wisdom, some learning from this experience, and then move forward and start to create this new year for myself. And, really that leads then into, well, what is it that I want to create in the new year? And I think about dreams and goals. And even though I said I wasn't a big proponent of New Year's resolutions, I do want to speak to this because I think that what I experience with anyone that I work with is we can all be a lot bigger in our dreams. We kind of limit ourselves in what's possible because our brain is a pattern making machine. Our brain only knows what it's already experienced. And so when we are thinking about, well, what could I do in this new year? What can I bring forth either personally or professionally? We're limited by our past experiences. And so when we're starting to think about, well, what are our dreams for the new year? We really want to put on that, that 10x or that bigger, badder, bolder hat and just see if this was extravagant, what would it look like? What would my life be like? Because we're usually aiming to like the 1x, the 2x, the 3x, but there is so much more that's available for us. And I've found myself like kind of getting out of the way and letting the things surprise me has been great. So we have these like bigger dreams that we start to envision for ourselves and open up to. But then we also need to, of course, make them happen, right? So a goal then is a practical step, a tactical step towards achieving the dream. So if my dream, which is one of my dreams, is to one day take my family on safari to Africa, I can dream that, but yes. I can dream that, but how do I get there, right? So it's going to cost money. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to build up for that budget. It's going to be logistics. I'm going to have to learn about when to go. But those are all tactical things that I can start putting into goals. And so we align the goals with the bigger dreams that we have. And then, what I think is really important for achieving goals is, first of all, there's a fun little fact that we know that just by writing a goal down, we're 42% more likely to achieve it. So doing this work, gathering the data, getting clear, starting to write our goals down is already getting us further along the path because it's enhancing our brain. It's the reticular activating system of our brain is the part of the brain that filters all the data that's coming in at us at all the time. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of data coming in. And if we would consume all that data, we would just be knocked down onto the floor. But the reticular activating system, the RAS filter, sorts through all that data for what's important to us. And so when we write a goal down, when we do an exercise like this and get clear on what our intentions are, that RAS filter of our brain begins to spot the opportunities. So it might say, oh, here's a travel agency that specializes in taking families on safari. I might not have even noticed that ad or seen that video if I hadn't planted that seed, right? And so our RAS filter begins to sort through the data and point out those solutions to the goals that we have. The other things that I want to mention that are really important for the goals is that it's more than just writing the goal, but it's about who do I need to become to achieve the goal. So I don't believe that we achieve goals. I mean, yes, we do, but I really believe that what it is that we grow into them. Because if I'm going to achieve a goal that I've never achieved before, I'm not going to be the same person as I am right here, right now. So I either need to learn something new or I need to think differently about that goal. Oftentimes it's both. So we want to look at our mindset and the skills that we need to achieve the goal. For example, I had the goal the previous year of wanting to finally get my book published. And I had to look at my mindset and say, is there anything that's blocking me from this? Is there anything that I'm believing about myself that's holding me back from publishing this book? There was some fear about being vulnerable and exposing myself and putting my story out there that I had to work through. So I had to really, change into more of a courageous mindset. And I really had to believe that it was possible for me. I had to believe that this is something that I can accomplish. So that was a mindset shift that I had to grow into in order to achieve that goal. And then also there's skills that I had to learn, right? I had to learn how to hire an editor. I had to learn how to publish a book. But once we identify those skills and that mindset, then that kind of gives us and guides us along our path onto how we can achieve the goal. And then one final piece that I'll add to this, and then I'll stop talking for a moment, is really thinking about the behaviors and the actions that are going to help us to create this life that we love, to accomplish our dreams. Because we can have the goal, it requires us to shift our mindset and to learn something new, but then we have to take action. And so when I am trying to accomplish something new, it's what are those behaviors? What are those actions that I need to take? So for writing my book, for example, it was I needed just to sit down and write every day for 10 minutes. Or, doing this exercise, this very same exercise several years ago, I realized that I was very lonely and that I wanted deeper friendships here in Naples. And so I had to, first of all, stop looking at Naples, Florida, like a place where just old retired people were, and recognize that it was a place where I could make friends. I didn't really need to learn any new skills because I feel like I'm able to make friends pretty well. So for me, the biggest shift was that mindset shift and then the actions. And so what I developed for myself was this weekly goal of texting 3 friends. That is a behavior, that is an action that is moving me towards the goal. That's something I can measure. And I literally had on a piece of paper, did you text your 3 friends this week, Sarah? And did you schedule one girls' night out each month? And, that's just how I am. I know that we're making a lot of decisions. We have a lot on our plates, all of us leaders. And so the easiest way that we can set ourselves up for success, for me, that looks like putting things in my calendar and having systems that allow for success. And that's really that second bucket of emotional intelligence, that self-management piece, is having those rituals, those routines, those systems, like counting how many times you text your friends or invite them out on a girls' night, that allowed me to move towards achieving a goal.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
No, in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, I'm used to walking others through this as a very workshop format type experience. So
no, because just even the things that the questions that you put, it just gets the brain going too. It's like, oh snap, okay, you just start immediately evaluating and thinking about things, and doing the whole, I don't know, mental go-kart track. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, it's really good to pause and to, sit with the journal and write these things down. And like I said, gather the data so that you're clear on, okay, what do I do now with this? I'm already ahead of others because I'm just pausing my very busy life. But what it is it's giving us a true north, like what
Yeah.
I call a true north alignment. It's getting us that GPS of where we want to go versus just kind of keeping going in the same direction that we've been. And, thinking about how it is we spend our time. And, one of the questions that I look at monthly, and I also add into this annual review, is that, the 80-20 principle, the fact that 20% of my efforts are creating 80% of my results. And, what is my zone of genius? What are the things that are the vital functions that I need to do in both my personal life and my professional life? And how can I shift things so that I'm spending as much of my time in that zone of genius? I was also thinking about that question from Gary Keller, who I had his question on my bulletin board for over a year. And he says in his book, I think it's called The One Thing. Have you read that book?
It's I may have started it on Audible, and I think I got lost. So
Okay.
it is
Well,
somewhere.
it's simply, his question is, what is the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? What is the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And so starting every day, looking at that, what's going to make the biggest impact in my productivity of my day, and then looking at this new year coming forward, what's going to add the most joy, what's going to add the most success for me, and doubling down on those things.
What advice, or I shouldn't say advice, or what words to the wise, what wisdom, what nuggets do you have? Because you get to work with plenty of clubs and club professionals. What's the last thing you'd want to leave with them as we're talking about all this and wrapping it up?
Yeah, I just feel so lucky and privileged to be working with so many amazing club leadership teams. And I was with, one of the top clubs in the country a couple weeks ago, and it was one of my emotional intelligence leadership workshops, and we talk about communication and having empathy and all these things. But really, what was so beautiful to see is that they were very much concerned about how do we make an impact in others' lives? How do we show up most powerfully so that we can impact our team and know that that's going to trickle out and impact the membership and the member experience? And so what I would leave with your club manager listeners is, where is your impact? How are you feeling fulfilled? How can you make an impact with your team? Because that is going to lead to more fulfillment in your life. And we do that by creating this place of fulfillment in ourselves. So it's serving our team, serving the members, but also serving ourselves and lighting ourselves up and doing what brings us joy in order to get to that end result of what we would deem a successful year.
Where can people learn more about you?
So my website is joydiscovered.com. It's discovered, joy discovered with an ED at the end. And then the one thing I wanted to share is, my book was published earlier this year. It was a #1 Amazon bestseller. I do have the audiobook version that I am offering your listeners if they would like to download it for free.
Oh, snap.
Yes.
Thank
you.
you.
Can get that you're welcome. I just know that it's so helpful. It's been really well received by the private club space, but it's bookforbalance.com/audio is where you can get that. And again, it's bookforbalance.com/audio for the free audiobook of my book, The Balanced Life Blueprint.
And I will put a link to that in the show description. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. It's always such a pleasure when we talk, and thanks for coming on and dropping some knowledge, sharing some wisdom, and that great gift for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sarah. If you enjoyed this, if you got a nugget of information, make sure you share it with someone who you might also think can benefit from this episode as well. It's a friend, a colleague, an enemy, who knows? A 5-star rating and review would mean the world if you are enjoying the content on whatever platform you're listening to, Apple, Spotify, wherever. But that's this episode. I'm your host, Denny Corby. Until next time, catch y'all on the flippity flip.